so lovely to have you here, Lulu. Thank you for joining us. I had the pleasure of meeting you at Patient Day weekend, and you and I spoke a bit about your work and endometriosis. So I want to share the knowledge that you have gotten throughout your research and now with your products.
I'm so happy to chat with the EndoFound community, Diana. It's great to reconnect.
Definitely. So I first want to explain what Elix is and then get into what made you so impassioned to do this research.
100%. So Elix is really the first East meets West community dedicated to holistic healing. We have clinically proven herbal formulas, online blog content related to endometriosis, coaching services, and we're really based on the 5,000-year-old principles of how to heal naturally with Chinese herbal medicine, which is really focusing on a mind, body, spirit approach. And the way that we're modernizing Chinese herbal medicine is by running clinical trials, having an online health assessment. So anyone who lives in places where they might not have access to an in-person acupuncturist or herbalist can have access to personalized care via our online platform. And then we're running some of the first clinical studies in this space, looking at how and why herbs such as Angelica sinensis or gardenia or white peony root, ginger are really proven to support anti-inflammatory and hormone health in our bodies. And we know all of these things support our community members with endometriosis and other chronic conditions.
For you, what really brought you to this research where you thought, okay, the endometriosis community is not being served holistically enough and with the science to back it up?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I honestly, it was my own journey trying to understand my menstrual and hormone health and realizing just what a lack of education that we as women in this country really have access to. I kind of remember in fourth or fifth grade, they did a 1 hour presentation, like, separate all the girls and the boys and
Yeah.
girl, this is going to start happening. It's going to be painful. And basically your life is going to suck. And here are some pads.
Right, here's your little baggie to go, like your take home bag to prepare you for like the next 20, 30, 40 years of what is supposed to be normal menstrual suffering
Right,
or
right.
normalized, I should say.
The suffering and the volatility in our lives has just been so normalized that I remember I was put on birth control, I think at like 13 or 14 years old, because my cramps and my bleeding was just so heavy that I couldn't really focus at school and I was calling in sick. So fast forward 20 years, I've been on birth control. And in my late 20s, I just started having all of these different side effects. And I remember going from the pill to patch to ring, and I just never felt like myself on birth control. So when I got married when I turned 30, I actually went off the pill. I experimented going off the pill, and I discovered post-birth control syndrome, where my period didn't
Mm,
come for months. My hair started falling out. I started getting hormonal acne everywhere, migraines, just like sharp, excruciating pains when my
mm,
period would come. And this was during one of the most critical times in my career. I was running a large department and a $300 million budget of strategic projects for a large corporation. I was expected to show up at board meetings, present my recommendations, and I remember on this one large merger acquisition project, instead of being at the board meeting, I was literally curled up in a ball, shivering from the
mm.
pain in my uterus. And that's when I went back to my gynecologist, and her only solution was really to put me back on the pill, patch, ring, or some other form of hormonal contraceptives. And I just thought, there has to be something else out there that could support us. And luckily for me, my grandfather actually ran a hospital in Hunan, China. And so when he heard from my mom that all of this was going on, he connected me to Dr. Xia Hongshen, who is considered one of the leading global experts on herbs for women's health. He's written over 100 papers, 45 books on
Incredible.
how herbs and how diet and lifestyle changes can really help us with hormone health. And, long story short, when I went to go see him, he read my pulse, which if anyone's gone to see an acupuncturist, one of the first things, he asked me to stick out my tongue, because the tongue and our skin are some of the only signs of external organs that show a reflection of internal health. And Diana, the first question Dr. Shah asked me was, how are your periods? And I just thought my mom had given him a heads up. I looked at her, she was like, I didn't say anything. And he said, based on your pulse and seeing the inflammatory markers and the signals of stress, and he said internal heat, which is a term in Chinese medicine that loosely correlates with inflammation. He's like, I could tell that you might be experiencing some imbalances that could lead to menstrual pain. I was shocked that he could tell that. And then
That is shocking. All
yeah.
from looking at for your pulse, your tongue, and your skin evaluation.
And then he proceeded to ask me additional questions like, what's the color of your menstrual blood? What are the size of your clots? How heavy is your bleeding? How many days does that occur? How often do you get a cycle? Is it predictable? What's the level of stress in your life? How's your urine, your bowel movement, your sleep? And I eventually learned that these questions are a way of pattern diagnosis in Chinese medicine. And that's how we figure out what the root cause of the imbalance is, and then what are the best herbs and lifestyle and diet interventions to help support you. So essentially, we kind of took that process that I had of seeing Dr. Shah, and Dr. Shah eventually prescribed me a blend of herbs. I, it was a long story of how I procured the herbs, but once I finally got them, I remember boiling them down and they tasted awful. I'm not going to lie. But they helped me so much. And all my girlfriends at work, when I started talking about this, they came forward. Like one friend I worked with had endometriosis, another friend had PCOS, another friend just had really painful digestive upsets, mood swings, irregular cycles. And I thought, oh my gosh, like all of us are just suffering in silence here. And we're not really having these open conversations. And so many of us are looking for other more natural ways to support our bodies. Like, what if we could build something that helped more people not only get access to the products, but really understand that there's other things that we could try to support ourselves?
Yes, I mean that is such an inspiring story from you going from someone who was suffering, who was told that this was normalized pain, and that you had a doctor here in the United States that the solution was to give you the same thing that caused the problem, or was, I would say, hindering kind of a solution. So for you to be able to take that know-how and then put it into practice is so encouraging. That, I mean, to have the background you have and to be able to help so many others that are going through a similar journey is just really, really inspiring and incredible. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Diana.
So for people who want to look into this, they can go to your website, correct? And
Yes.
and then how does someone find, I mean, I know it's all kind of step by step, but walk us through what a potential, I guess, customer, client, patient would have to do in order to get on your program.
Yeah, so we have a free online health assessment at elixhealing.com. And we actually have a code for community members of EndoFound. It's EndoFound 24 for 15% off your first 3 months. But essentially, once you go through the online health assessment, there's a page where you'll see the herbs that are recommended for you. And I know a lot of people wonder, like, how do these herbs work? And like, what is the actual mechanism? And what are some of these herbs? So, one of my favorite herbs that we use in almost every formula is actually this guy right here. It's called Angelica sinensis, Dangui. It's known as a really powerful anti-inflammatory that helps with uterine spasms, cramps, constipation, irregular cycles. And the way that it works is it contains a lot of vitamins and minerals found in women's multivitamins, but at naturally high reoccurring levels. So from a Western medicine perspective, this has folic acid, iron, biotin, calcium, vitamins B12, A, E, and antibacterial properties.
Oh,
And in Chinese medicine, this is actually known to be a blood and qi mover. So it's like a lot of times, like, in Chinese medicine, it's considered our blood isn't properly circulating, and these herbs can help things flow more smoothly. Or we use other herbs like medicinal mushrooms, like this guy. This is a reishi mushroom that's proven to support the central nervous system and regulate the HPA axis, effects of stress, and so forth. Or like gardenia pods. These are incredibly effective also for various different symptoms related to balancing in Chinese medicine what's known as heat and dampness. It's also powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, helps with cramping, headaches, acne, mood swings. So, there's just every blend of herbs, every blend of Elix formulas comes with about 11 to 15 different herbs based on your health assessment results. And then we also offer online health coaching. So health coaching could be signed up before purchasing or after. And that was what we presented at the EndoFound conference. Really, our 6 holistic lifestyle pillars. We looked at over 200 clinical studies that showed what are the foods that we should be eating to support hormone health, the importance of movement, how can we really regulate our breath, our mental, emotional states to support ourselves. So all of this information can be found on our blogs as well, which is completely free. We have over 100 blog posts related to recipes, diet, lifestyle tips, and that's where we're really here wanting to be a resource to support our community members with chronic conditions because we know it's not a one size fits all.
right. For when you do the health coaching or even the assessment, I'm assuming people would say, okay, I'm on this medication. Is there any kind of adverse effects when those interact? Is that taken into account as well?
Yes, there's a question on our health assessment that asks what current medications you're on. And there are known contraindications with blood moving herbs and certain types of medications related if you're getting treatment for certain cancers, for example, or certain, I guess, like regulation of the they're very specific, but basically we recommend people to list their medications and then they'll receive more information on the next page about whether or not this could be a fit. And we always recommend for people to speak to their doctors if they're not sure about starting a new herbal regimen. And that is why we have an East Meets West advisory board of gynecologists, MDs, dietitians, in addition to acupuncturists and Chinese medicine professionals.
That's so amazing. Is there any takeaways from just your journey going through from the education to the real life standpoint? Is there any kind of advice that you would give someone out there who could be struggling right now with their menstrual cycle?
I just say, don't give up. I think it's small. It can feel so daunting and not knowing where to start and feeling like you've tried so many things and things haven't worked. And what we really try to do at Elix is break down in our health coaching sessions the small daily actions you can take to start to feel better. And even with our herbal formulas, if you have a chronic condition, it might not work overnight, but we share the signs and symptoms to look out for. So, for example, if you've been suffering from pain for 5, 10 years, in the first month, the pain might still be there, but what people notice is as the herbs start to help with the movement of blood and qi, maybe your menstrual blood is a brighter shade of red, or your clots are slightly smaller. And so I think it's so important for us to give ourselves that grace. And yes, like maybe we're day one, we haven't solved the big problem yet, but can we make small improvements each day and try new things and really notice where we are starting to feel better and motivate ourselves to continue forward?
That is such solid advice. I also just want to ask because this is all wrapped up, but menopause support, menopausal support, and perimenopause, that's really getting more into the mainstream conversations now, and before it wasn't. But throughout your life, I mean, there are so many life stages with your period. And I feel like there isn't as much offered for that in between the perimenopausal state. So will the herbs also address that stage as well?
Yes. And Diana, I guess one or more thing I want to add is something that we do notice is that there's seasonal and lifestyle impact on our healing journey. So
Mhm.
I would also encourage people to just, keep a journal or something to track when you're having those really low or really rough days. Just make a note of, what happened before, what else is going on in life, because
Mhm.
there's a huge correlation with stress. And that doesn't mean you're doing things wrong. That just means like healing is kind of like a cyclical thing, and there you'll have improvements and then things might drop and then you might go back up.
Mhm.
In terms of menopause, we do have formulas specifically formulated to support perimenopause. This guy right here, actually, Motherwort, is extremely effective for hot flashes and other symptoms related. But we also have a wellness formula. I think we sampled these at the conference, called Daily Harmony. Daily Harmony is actually based on a 1,000-year-old Chinese medicine formula that has been studied overseas to support with symptoms of anxiety, depression, and help with the side effects of SSRIs. And so, yeah, that's one that in Asia is commonly prescribed for both perimenopause and menopause.
Wow, that is so, see, that's intriguing because I've been having this conversation with some of my friends as I just turned 41 and I'm like, okay, I feel a little different. Like I don't feel as chipper and I keep thinking to myself and I feel more anxiety, but then you think, okay, well, once you get into your 40s, life gets really serious because you're either heavy into your career, I should say, and or both, or raising children, your parents are aging. There's now the grief component of even losing people that are significant in your life. So you wonder, is this my body going through changes? Is it psychological? Is it physiological? So to have extra support out there in the form of, an herb that, of course, you have to talk to your doctor and make sure that it's the right fit for you, but to have something that kind of supports all of these very dramatic and traumatic changes to life overall, including what's happening to your body, is really helpful.
Yeah, and there's also just so much from a diet and nutrient perspective because I mean,
Mhm.
diet, perimenopause and menopause, it's all of the above. And I think that's part of the challenge, right? Like so many of us are just, not talking about it, thinking, oh my gosh, is it me? Like maybe I just can't handle life anymore.
Right. My stress is so maxed out that I'm just shut down.
And the reality is it's all of the above. Like it is like objectively for many of us in this life phase, like life is a lot. There are so many roles and expectations that women are expected to play across all the different facets of life. And then emotionally, psychologically, physically, our hormonal levels are changing. Our estrogen is dropping and other things are happening from a psychological perspective. And so it makes sense that we do need extra support. And I think that's where both diet, movement, and herbs can support us so much.
Absolutely. And as you know, diet is hard to stick to, especially if you are so on the go that eating becomes eating, whatever's in front of you, a granola bar while you're standing up and rushing. And of course, that's not good for the digestive system and that's not good for the cortisol levels. So um, there's,
Our number one tip there, I think, most women aren't either aware of this or told about this, is the importance of protein, especially as we're aging. Most of us aren't necessarily getting, let's say, 70 to 80% of our weight in grams of protein a day, or necessarily drinking um, half of our body weight in ounces of water a day. So I really personally try to get 30 grams of protein with breakfast. So then at least I know, okay, I have the amount of nutrients starting the day. And so many of us are having coffee on an empty stomach, which just really sends that cortisol spiking. So I think if we can do one thing to support ourselves, I would just say let's just get those 30 grams of protein at breakfast. And that could be 2 eggs, some bacon if you eat meat, some smoked salmon if you don't, some edamame beans, black beans, a cup of soy milk that's organic and non-GMO, and you're there.
That's a very, very helpful tip. And to hear the coffee on the empty stomach, I'm guilty of that. I do it all the time. It's like I always say it's like my air mask waking up, which is terrible. So that is something that I need to work on. But thank you for all these very practical, easy to implement lifestyle tips. And again, we're going to have the code below and the website below so that people can find Elix and start, looking into if it's the right fit for them. And thank you for all the work you've done.
Thank you, Diana, for all the great work you've done. We're so excited to continue to support EndoFound.
Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube page.